This week, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Colorado Outdoor Recreation Economy Act. The act would establish approximately 400,000 acres in Colorado's wilderness, recreation, and conservation areas. The bill highlighted the divide between Colorado's congressional delegation, as no Colorado Republican representatives nor Senator Cory Gardner supported the bill. The bill is unlikely to pass the Senate, and President Trump has already threatened to veto. Eric, we know the fate of the bill already, but it seems that the arguments, the floor of the House of Representatives was front and center of the really pretty far divide between the Democrats and Republicans that represent the state of Colorado. What did you think from what we saw of the arguments for and against this bill?
Well, first of all, I have to comment on the title of the bill. I think there's a whole new industry out there that, the mom and apple pie, which I already referenced earlier, industry that names these bills. What is it? The Colorado Outdoor Recreation and Economy Act, with a nice acronym of CORE. A lot of people are sort of throwing barbs around of which side of this debate is out of touch. This bill was sponsored by Senator Bennett and Congressman Neguse. And, their supporters would say the opponents, the Scott Tiptons, the Cory Gardners of the world, are just hopelessly out of touch. In my mind, the whole thing is indicative of the divide in this country and the divide in this state. And both sides are representing their constituencies. They just happen to have different constituencies. The constituency in favor of this bill is a lot of outdoor users, outdoor businesses, outdoor industry. And the opponents of this bill are people who believe in multiple uses of these lands, including ranching, including some degree of energy extraction, etc. You just have different visions of what this state is and different economic interests as well, and both sides are representing their constituencies.
Natasha, Representative Scott Tipton voted no on this, even though it would have impacted a great deal of his district. Do you think he'll regret that? Is this going to become a voting, an ad issue next year?
I think every point that is mentioned in this act is something we're going to discuss for many, many more years. And then that's how important it is. It makes sense for that reason. We're having lots of conversations in the state right now about how we use land, what we use it for, and even that question of use. It's us taking something from the land and how we interact with it. So all of these conversations are important. What I was relieved to see was that this was news coming out of Washington, D.C. that was so quintessential Colorado. These are the important conversations that we should be talking about at this table. One of the elements in there is designating Camp Hale as a National Historic Landscape. There are just lots of nuggets in this bundle of a very large package, and that's a problem, is the large package has so many different elements, and people are going to disagree with certain elements of that package. But there are some really interesting aspects that I think are worth discussion, hopefully going forward.
Patti, we don't get a lot of bills in D.C. named after Colorado, so this made some headlines, at least here. Are we going to continue to see stories about this as we get into the election season?
Well, of course, Trump will veto it if it passes the Senate, because it's going to get in the way of the wall he wants to build in this state. So that'll happen. I'm with Natasha on this Camp Hale thing, which is so fascinating. It would be the first national historic landscape created in the country. The story of Camp Hale is really wonderful. No one can disagree that what happened during World War II when they were training the skiing troops was remarkable. They've been talking about creating this landscape category for like 8 years, and it's gotten to this point, and it's not going to make it through this time, which is too bad. Also in this bill, 200,000 acres that would be taken off for drilling. They would be put off bounds for drilling. That is also a good thing in Colorado, but I don't think we'll see this pass.
Michael, wrap it up for us. Was this a 10% teapot, or is this going to be something bigger next year?
Well, I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion. I don't know how this gets done, or if it should get done without Scott Tipton being on board. I think him and Gardner both came out and said that they're open to it if there's certain amendments that are done on it. And I think that's a reasonable position. I think Scott Tipton knows his district really well, knows what's best on this issue. And so I think, if he signed off on something, I think you would see Gardner and perhaps the president, looking at it. But, given where it is right now, the president said he'd veto it, that the Senate's not going to pass it. I think it's back to the House Dems on if they want anything done or nothing done at all. And so I think this will, continue on next year and maybe into the future.